Okay, well, we're finally going to start to mount things on the chassis, and hopefully things will go a bit quicker than they have over the past 9 months. I did a lot of custom work to get that LT4 and the Superlite coupe chassis, but that is behind us, and this video is going to cover mounting the front radiator compartment. So you're looking at the side panels and then the floor, and basically, there's the nose of the chassis, and I have to drill some holes and basically mount these components. It should be pretty straightforward. All right, before we get started mounting the panels, we've got to duck under the chassis, and I'll show you a little work we have to do. All right, here's the bottom of the Superlite chassis. You can see the lowered floor pans for the seats, but this is really what we're dealing with here. This is the extended foot box, this particular area starting here, going out over here. And when they first manufactured this, they made a separate section here and then welded it to the rest of the chassis. But on my chassis, they made the whole floor pan out of a single water jet cut piece of aluminum, which is really good. The issue is, though, I guess they did not give the welder specific instructions not to weld that area, and we have some superfluous welds that really just were going to get in the way of the floor for the front compartment. So I'm going to grind these down before I get started mounting the front compartment parts. Okay, that looks pretty good, nice and smooth. Used a Dremel cutting wheel and also an orbital electric sander with 100 grit, and that certainly did the job. Okay, so we have the front compartment just loosely bolted up. The reason I'm bolting this up is I just wanted to double check that these holes sort of line up where the holes are marked on the chassis. They're not 100% symmetrical, and nothing on a hand-built car is 100% symmetrical, but I figured let me figure out where this is going to match up against the chassis, and then I'll drill the holes accordingly if the holes need to be adjusted. Okay, well, as you can see, we have the front radiator box attached to the Superlite chassis. It went according to plan. I had to tweak the right side holes a little bit. I brought them up about 5 millimeters. It turns out the left and the right bracket are not 100% symmetrical, and I've read that based on some feedback of a couple other builders. So I had the opportunity to make sure the floor pan mounted level, and I did. So that went in without any issue. Let's see, all the hardware is provided by RCR. My car came in a crate. Most customers get the car as a roller, so all this would be attached. But I've got to put it all together from scratch, which I sort of like. Let's see, a couple of things to point out. They also include 2 stabilizer bars. This one is used to connect the tip of the front splitter up to the box to hold it up. And then I have another one. Yeah, I have it here. Hold on. There we go. So you have another one, and we'll probably mount it somewhere around here or around here. They sort of leave that one for the builder to decide where they want to put it, especially if you have the extended foot box. If you don't, they have these 2 side holes, and you use that for the bar. But if you're not using the bar, that's actually where the back splitter mounts go, so you still have to use those holes. All right, let's see, what else do I have to do? I have to drill some holes in the floor pan, install the bolts, and then it'll be a wrap on the front compartment. All right, just hanging out under the chassis here of the Superlite coupe. You can see we have some slotted holes in the floor pan that I marked. We got 4 of them. I'll just use a pilot hole and then And we'll drill these out and finish this up. All right, we're just about done. You can see I have the pilot hole here. It's really nicely centered, and I've already drilled out the rest of these holes, and they just came out really well centered. And the reason, I continue to use these Christmas drill bits. They just drill a very exact round hole, and I hold it steady and go slow, drill a nice pilot hole, and then I move over to the larger bit. And that is the technique for getting accurate holes for brackets. Okay, so I finished tightening up all the bolts to secure the front radiator box. I wanted to point out the fact that RCR provides these nice holes in the top of the chassis with these plates that close it up after you're done working, but it gives you easy access to the front foot box, which is really nice. You can see the bolts that secure the radiator box floor to the main chassis, and also the side panel bolts as well. So that makes easy work. It makes it a one-person job instead of having two people have to tighten up a set of bolts. We'll take a step back here. I mean, the chassis is looking great. This is really cool. So anyway, it is a wrap for the front radiator box compartment. The next video, I'll show mounting the radiator, and I'll also show mounting the AC condenser. Thanks for watching. Take care. Well, just when you think you have your radiator box tightened up and completed, it turns out that by using the standard holes, the front of the radiator box is just too narrow. It's too narrow to fit the radiator. So I have to actually slot these holes in order to make some room for the radiator. Just sort of the way the metal curves in here, and it's also, sort of pigeon toes in. We've got to get it to run true. It's actually the correct width side to side back here, but then when you just line up the 1/4 inch holes, it sort of pigeon toes in a little bit. So I've got to slot those holes, and then I should be good to go. Also keep in mind, I think I'm the only customer that got their SLC delivered in this fashion. Everybody else gets this as a roller, and RCR takes care of all the, these fine tuning adjustments. So this is not a criticism on the kit whatsoever. It's a great kit. This is exactly the way I wanted to build this car. I wanted to build it bolt by bolt, hole by hole. And, I'm a beginner too, so I'm documenting it like a beginner, showing every step of the way. Okay, so just want to be clear about that. Okay, so here's the technique we'll use to elongate the hole. You can see I have a little black dot there. I'm going to start that hole with the Christmas tree bit, and then use a 1/4 inch bit and just create the slotted area. This should give me enough adjustability on both sides, so let's see how that works. Fa la 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 la. There we go, the Christmas tree bit. I really like these things. Look at that pilot hole. So now I'll use the 1/4 inch bit. Then maybe we'll use a Dremel, make it elongated, but this should do the job. This one I think we could leave alone. It sort of creates a pivot point, and it just needs to toe out a little bit from this part of the bracket. So I think I got it right. Hopefully I do. Okay, there it is, the slotted hole. So it's only the most forward-facing hole that I'm slotting, and I think this will do the job. I'm going to put this on, and then I'll do the other side, and we should have plenty of room for the radiator to slide in now. Okay, here we go. I got the rear bolts back on, that front bolt, and I have the slotted hole now in the front bracket. Okay, and you can see I probably don't even have to move it all the way over, maybe halfway through, and I should get a a good 1/4 inch, a little more than 1/4 inch on each side, which is really what I need. All right, so I'm going to do the other side and then we'll see how it goes. Okay, well, it turns out in order to get the radiator to fit, I need to elongate both sets of holes. Also texted with a few other SLC builders, and it turns out my radiator is a good 1/2 inch larger than a more recent customer, and then 0.75 inches wider than one of the original kits. So, you know, clearly I've got a radiator with a little more capacity, and, you know, once again, this adjustment would have been handled by the factory, but because of the way my kit was delivered, you know, I've got to figure this stuff out. But the good news is I don't have to, you know, elongate these brackets or relocate the holes on the side of the chassis. Just a slight adjustment here to get a 1/4 inch move there and a 1/4 inch move there, and we are good to go. All right, so it's all back together. So this is really a wrap with regard to the front radiator box assembly. A couple things to note. So you can see these panels are still very straight, but I gained a 1/2 inch of room, and you can tell by looking at this front bar, I added all these washers, really a 1/2 inch or a 1/4 inch of washers on each side. So that gives me enough clearance for the radiator, which you'll see in the next video. And ultimately, you know, I'll replace those washers with a nice beveled spacer, either out of aluminum billet or out of stainless. But anyway, looking good. It was really just a very slight modification, and now I get the wider radiator in the car. You know, I'm assuming that the radiator is upgraded. It gives a little more cooling capability, so I'm glad that's what I have. You know, it's just assembling this myself, and, you know, like I said, I mean, the factory normally would have made the adjustment for you, but I figured it out. Wasn't too hard. All right, thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.